Good morning, St. Martin. What's up? Was a busy week last week. Had a lot of things to prep for. Had a great interview with Mr. Terence Ray. I hope you didn't miss it, but if you did, you can go back to News Cafe of last week, Thursday, and you can take a little peek and listen to the interview we had. I think it was a very down-to-earth and direct interview. We touched on the challenges within the justice system, and I made use of my story to explain to people what you can encounter when a system is not in balance and how you go about fighting it, or if you just roll over, play dead, or you just take the punishment because you can't afford to pay for a lawyer to continue the fight. You see, those are the things that came up in the discussions, but also one of the most important things I did in that interview is I turned over most of the court documents to Mr. Ray so that Terence could read the headlines, but also the details of what truly transpired in the court case. And when he tells you the hairs on the back of my neck are standing, and mind you, me and Terence, we are on different sides of the fence politically, so he wasn't doing me no political favor. Elections are over, and we decided to do this after the elections because I didn't want to put an election tint on it. I wanted the story to be told. I wanted people to understand what's truly happening. You see, when evidence is fabricated by those in absolute power, you have a problem. That transpired in my case, and I proved it to Mr. Ray beyond a shadow of a doubt. I showed him the documents, I showed him the emails, I showed him everything. So I'm not going to elaborate on that interview today. I think it's great if you go back to News Cafe, the platform that Mr. Ray uses, and you listen to that interview. An interview where critical questions were asked, truthful answers were given, backed by documents, so that there was no misleading of anyone or trying to guide the story in any sense to a specific direction. He was warned. Mr. Ray was told by many, be careful with this interview because you might be next. And that is sad when that is your departure point to tell the truth. Be careful because I might come for you next. That is sad. But that is the justice we live in. That's the democracy we are so proud of. That's what it is. But today, in this edition, I want to discuss some things that I believe need to be discussed. Because we talk a lot. We say a lot of things, and I'm no different. I have a podcast, so I talk about it. Others, they just talk about it by throwing one-worders, two-worders on Facebook. And you have others that just don't say nothing and move on. Now, one such topic, a very ticklish topic, depending on which side of the fence you're on, depending who you're supporting, is carnival permits. Now, please, before I talk about it, let me give you my position. Carnival is our yearly festival for about 2.5 weeks, where a foundation that is in existence for 30 plus years, on behalf of the people of St. Martin, I'm not going to say on behalf of the government, on behalf of the people of St. Martin, puts on a show in the village or on the road by parades and those the jump ups and those type of things. Mind you, we have been doing this for 50 plus years. Always in the village. Be it a wooden village with little booths, be it the concrete structure festival village we have now, we have been doing it that way. So I was kind of disturbed when I read an article in the papers that we are going to create a second village for 3 nights, I think, on the Ring Road. And then you hear the discussions that start, then you see a full page ad of the president of the Carnival Committee. Now, Mr. Rajuki, he is not one of these people that loves the press and you will always see him talking in the press. No, that's not Mr. Rajuki's style. So Rajuki is a hands-on man. I know him for many years. He comes, does what he has to do, and moves on. That's his style. But this clearly started last year when they wanted to privatize or put on bid the Carnival. For whatever reason, that didn't go through. And now permits are being granted to promoters that were in the village. Now, I don't know why they are not in the village. I am not going to speculate. What I understood, speaking to some of the people, is they opted not to take their nights because they were given first preference for the nights. They opted not to take them. Maybe they find the village is too expensive. I don't know. But what I do know is that we have been losing police officers every month. Every month. And now we are going to put another event. Basically, huge shows. Shows that over the years have shown 5,000 plus patrons go to them, if not more. We're going to put those down the road on Ring Road and the Festival Village with another big group having international shows. The question is this. What are we doing? Are we planning to destroy the Carnival Foundation because they're not playing to the tunes that certain people want them to play? Are we preparing the hospital for accidents? Because the police is spread so thin that we are going to have accidents. It happens, we pretend as if this is a crime-free country. It is not. Carnival is known for the time to settle beefs. And it don't need to happen inside. It can happen outside, but the effect will be humongous. Because it is a very badly lit place. And you're going to start putting lights, but remember, accidents hide in a very small corner. And again, it's not about the promoters. It's not about the Carnival Committee. It's about the government. Why do we put ourselves in such a position? And then you hear them come out and start to defend, but we checked the dates, and we did this, and we did that. The question is, why are you doing it? If the other groups want to have a weekend of fun, May 13th, Father's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, why during the Carnival? I thought it was a policy not to allow big festivals during the Carnival season, primarily because of security. You can't handle it. Now you hear them talking about, we're going to fly in 40 police officers from Curacao. Who going to pay for that? You can't even pay the police what you owe them. But you're going to fly in 40 police officers to go watch another show outside? Is that bill going to be for the organizers? Because it cannot be for the country. Because the country does without those 40 in the other Carnival seasons. So what is it exactly that we are planning now with this? Again, I am disappointed, and I decided, let me talk about it. Let me talk about this because I know, and I'm reading one of the comments already here, there was a negative advice from the police to the minister. A negative advice. Do not do this. We don't have the manpower. And here comes Miss Beauty Queen. I don't care. We are doing it. I'm giving the permits. Because those permits can be based on logic and safety. They are based on something else. I can't prove that, so I ain't going there. But I know it ain't based on logic nor safety of the country. That's for sure. But again, like I said, we'll see what the outcome is. I hope that everything is safe and everything goes well. But it is clear that in my humble opinion, the intent of these shows is to mash up the carnival. And as a patron and a carnival lover, I can't agree with that. No matter how good the shows are, I cannot attend them. Now, if it is up to me, those permits are going to get revoked. And yes, a lot of expenses were made. A lot of expenses were made. And somebody's going to have to pay for that. Well, guess what? The law also says when ministers make irresponsible decisions, that you hold them personally liable. I think that is what we should be looking at. Because this is ludicrousy. Maybe we should bring Ludacris to sing. Because this is down his alley now. This is crazy. Booth holders that make a lot of money during these big shows. Because these are big shows that left the village. And make no mistake, there are 4 or 5 big shows that left the village. And it's going to affect the booth holders. Now again, I'm not talking about the promoters, SCDF, or the booth holders. I'm just showing you consequences of such a decision. Because when you spread the patrons, it means less money is going to be made by the booth holders that have paid up their monies, are prepared to go, and then you see 3 to 4 big nights are gone. Because my son had a booth in the village, doesn't have one this year. And Bacchanal Sunday, Flag Fest, Hit Makers, those were serious nights. That's where you make a lot of money. Because there are a lot of other nights where you can't even sell a chicken leg. So again, it's not about pointing fingers at people. It's about looking at a history of 53 years of holding carnival in a specific way, and we want to change it up now. Already, we have a music festival, in my opinion, and not always a carnival. I disagree sometimes with the SCDF. We just have these discussions. But you know, listen, I respect their position. I understand. It's very expensive to host shows that are local based because very often they lose on those nights. So they have to make back some money with international nights. I understand that. And I am not going to make a big issue. But I believe sponsors that also sponsor the Carnival Committee, sponsor these other promoters also. And it's becoming confusing now because you pay 5 years of marketing rights in the village and then suddenly 4 or 5 big shows are out of the village. How does that work? How does that work with the sponsors now? They're not getting the bang for their dollar that they had hoped for. For whatever reason, another consequence. You see, when you tell me, oh, we looked at the dates and we thought it was okay, then you look at the consequences. Because that's where the bottleneck is. The losses that might be incurred by the organization unnecessarily. I'm not saying that others can't hold shows in Somerton, but during the carnival period, let's keep that piece as sacred and say, let's not put shows in there. Because if we start doing that, why would it have to stop on the Ring Road? Why not Phillipsburg? You can remember we used to have big block jams by Wooden Island Bank. We used to have them by Holland House. They stopped them. Why? Security. Police was spread too thin. So tomorrow, when you start throwing big jams down Simpson Bay on the strip with big artists, and then you got the Ring Road and you got the Carnival Village, what happens then? Because you can't tell them over there now, no either. Once you open Pandora's box, it's opened. That's the problem that we sometimes seemingly don't think about. And then afterwards, we can come and cry foul as a hypocrite. But hey, that's part of the problem. But for me, I think it's wrong. This is not my last word on this topic yet. I will broach this topic for sure again. I'm going to continue getting information. I'm going to try to find the advice, the negative advice that was given by the police. And if I get my hands on it, I'm going to publish it. I'm going to publish it because that will show without a shadow of a doubt that logic and responsibility were not part of the decision making. Transatlantic monopoly fares by Air France and KLM to St. Martin. A whole collection of signatures started, a signature drive started because Air France is the only airline that comes to St. Martin right now from France. We used to have Air Caribes and all of them, and all of those are down. So Air France can do as they feel like with their fares, and they're the only one. Remember, in Guadeloupe and Martinique, you have about 5 to 10 flights a day to France with different carriers. So the price is a little more competitive than it is in St. Martin. But the same goes for KLM, because KLM is the only one that comes here. We don't have Corundan, I think it is, and we don't have TUI, none of those. We only have KLM, while Bonaire, Aruba, and Curacao have those other three. Most of those airlines also have hotel chains, so they facilitate their hotel with people. They have a much bigger share in the European market than we have. We don't market it most probably enough. We don't put in enough to get it done. But it is a problem that we have to start looking at. We have to start looking at how can we get the European market come to St. Martin also. It has never historically been our market. Our market has always been the northeastern part of the United States, from Boston come down. But I think it's time to start looking for new markets, including South American markets like Brazil and those places. These are rich countries. They have their people. Canada, we have 3 airlines that fly in here, but they're more seasonal than they are permanent. So it is something we have to look at. But again, I think we need somebody with a helicopter view and that can think strategically to handle such for us. Clearly, right now, that's not going to happen, so let's wait for the change with the new government. I think the minister-to-be has a good grip on how these things work a little bit. She understands marketing for sure. She has a master's in that. So I think we will see a different approach on how that will happen moving forward. But I hope that, we start looking at it from a different way. And actually, I hope the rates go down, because once the rates go down a little bit, you're going to get more people that will come to the island. Mullet Bay. Mullet Bay belongs to Aenia now again, to the Aenia Group. Through newspaper articles, we were made aware that Mr. Ansari did not file at the Supreme Court. He didn't file for cassation in the case of ownership of Aenia. He tried to claim Mullet Bay being owned by Parman, a company he has 70-something% ownership in, stakes in, that Mullet Bay was from that company, so he owned it. He lost that in courts, and Aenia now owns the Mullet Bay property. Now, why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because St. Martin needs to make a proposal to own Mullet Bay, to buy Mullet Bay from Aenia. St. Martin has the most at stake with Mullet Bay. A property that, if the government gets it or buys it, they can work with developers, hotel chains, to make something nice, yet safeguard the Mullet Bay Pond, a World Heritage Site, ensure that the beach is public and there's adequate parking at one of the best beaches in this country. The golf course is brought up to par. There are so many things that if you own it, you can set the prerequisites on how we're going to develop it and how it will be run and what income this would mean for the country. Job-wise, there'll be a lot of jobs. A regular stream of income there will be. So there are a lot of options. Now, how does St. Martin buy Mullet Bay? Mullet Bay was taxed. There's a taxation value on it. I believe it's about 80 million, if I'm not mistaken myself. St. Martin has to make an agreement with the India Group that they will be paid through the central bank for the purchase of Mullet Bay. We have, on average, 26 million guilders we get per year on the foreign exchange tax, the guilder to dollar. So the 80 million is about 100, let's say about 150 million guilders. Now, approximately 6 years that we are talking about, that money goes directly to India, and St. Martin owns Mullet Bay. Besides that, the reason I'm concerned is because Curaçao's parliament took a decision that they're going to sell India. Because the debt that has to be paid back between St. Martin and Curaçao for about $600-700 million, they're going to sell it so it can be safeguarded, so that Curaçao's government is not saddled with a 25-year debt. This happened 2 weeks ago in the Parliament of Curaçao, people. But I have realized that a lot of people don't follow the news in Holland and in Curaçao. And very often you hear them talking here, and they are talking 2 weeks old. They have no clue what's really happening. So I decided that I have a new approach with my shows. And one of those is to bring these things to the forefront so that the people can also understand what's happening, so they can call on their politicians and say, did you hear what Bonkampa said? He talking foolishness or he talking truth? Because if he's talking truth, you got to get off your backside and go do something instead of talking about Pan-Latino. I want travel. Go do something and save Mullet Bay for the people that you have been elected to represent. That's what we gotta start doing. But we don't. And that's unfortunate. I read an article about the ongoing beachfront overdevelopment. And I read it with much interest because it was a direct shot, finally, that was sent to the Minister of Vromi and Tiat regarding the overdevelopment of the coastline to the detriment of the ecosystem and environment in general. And I know every time you bring this up, oh, you were there for 20 years, what do you do? I can't do nothing, I give an advice. And the minister in whose party I am, Christopher Emmanuel, left there 6 years ago in January. Since then, a huge amount of rebuilding and new buildings have started. And you have to ask yourself the question, and I'll explain you why I'm going to say this. If the ministers truly care about such, that the ecosystems and the environment in general are being destroyed. When you look at what's happening in the hills, when you look at what's happening on the beach, when you see what's happening around the ponds, it begs to question, are we talking to people in the know about the ecosystem and the environment? Are we talking to the EPIC Foundation? Are we talking to the ones that we even have appointed to do this, the Nature Foundation? The answer is no. And naturally, they'll cover all kind of little Nancy stories just now to tell you, no, we ask them advice. And they tell us this, and they tell us that, and they tell us that. I am not going to make my hands dirty on that piece because I know better. I know how it works. When you see St. Martin Pride, EPIC, come out and start to talk and start to warn people of what's going to happen, you have to ask yourself the question, government, what is our position on buying land from third parties to safeguard our ecosystem? Because you can say, oh, I'm not going to give them a permit, I'm going to zone it green. You can't just zone private property green without compensating the owners. They will take you to courts. I mean, it is ludicrous that everybody build up all over the place, and then somebody has a piece of land with a beachfront, and they go, oh, you can't build because you're too late. All the others built already. He will go to the judge, and the judge will say, look, I understand all the safeguarding, but you're going to pay for it. You have to pay to keep it green. Other than that, you have to give people their permits because they have a right to their permits. This is the problem. This is the problem. And while they can't touch the pond, they're going to build around the pond, you're going to lose the beauty of the pond. You won't see the pond no more. You won't see the mangroves no more. Because that's their property now. And this is what, for me, is very important. We are excavating hillsides to build condominiums. The problem is, not one of those condominiums is truly owned by locals. Foreigners come here, they invest in their condominiums, the money goes abroad, it never stays here. It never stays here. If we like it or not. Those are the harsh realities. And when this happens, I don't blame the investor, you know. I don't blame the contractor. I don't blame the real estate. I blame the damn government who allows it to continuously happen. That's the problem. We are not looking out for what's really happening. So when you hear an MP come out now and starts to make noise, I smile because I don't see nothing going to happen. They're going to build right by Belia. They're going to build. Because the government said they don't have no money to buy the land and protect it. Yet they took a loan for 60-something million, of which they put 40 million in the pot by Vromi. No, Vromi is the one that buys land, so maybe Vromi should go talk to the people. Because, you know, there was a chap tell me on Facebook, well, how come we build roads for 10 years? We didn't build them because there was no money. Since 2014, there were no capital injections given to government. But you there, so you can see, you know the story better than me. So, you know, you gotta be careful when you ask those type of questions publicly, you know, because they're gonna answer you. But maybe that money, some of that money should be taken to start protecting some of these areas. Because that land is not worth 100 million. You pay market value. Because maybe you should then think on taking the land from them and stating it must be green to ensure that the catch basin for water is safeguarded and guaranteed and the ecosystem cannot be destroyed. It means when you go to disappropriate the land, you have pay for it. You end up in courts. So make an offer. Make an offer as government. Start with that. Instead of just sitting down telling us, oh, look at the problems. No, make an offer. Parliament can do so. Parliament can make a motion and ask them to do something. Because talk is cheap. I don't want to quote the fellow because I don't want his hair to swell. But if you're not going to walk the walk, then stop the talk. Because that's what we're doing. What happened in Parliament is just talk. What? Unprecedented level of destruction plans? Huh, okay. What's new? What's new? We continuously allow people to build on the edge of the lagoon. We just granted permits for huge developments down in the Puerto Copocoy area on the waterfront. So I don't understand the cry with Belia. Because we got to go further. We really, really got to go much further. And in their article, because I don't want to like do as if I'm shooting them down with the article, because the article spoke about places like Simpson Bay, Lagoon, Simpson Bay itself, K Bay, Little Bay. Remember, in K Bay we come with Lavien and V or something like that now? A 7-star hotel. But it's on a beach. It's on a beach. And already access to that place is through security. So again, I'm not saying you can't get in, but you have to tell them where you're going. So you tell them you're going to the beach bar, you can reach to the bar and the beach. But when they start building that hotel, what's going to happen with the beach? Who's allowed to go to the beach? These are just simple things that we got to start thinking about. Because it isn't in the last month that this has happened. This has happened in the last 2-3 years. And we got to be careful with how much we're going to build on this country, because we have passed our limits a long time. Current capacity studies showed that we cannot continue sustaining the growth we have. Not economically, because the money is staying here, but with concrete and people. We just can't. But like I said, all of these big projects, they do a few things. They put a serious pressure on the already poor and inadequate infrastructure that we have. Think on the road network. Think on the sewage plants for sewage. Think on the garbage, the solid waste. They put a pressure there. They put serious pressure there. We don't pay for sewage. We don't pay for garbage. And the roads, well, they said they're going to get capital investment for $40 million to go fix roads. What we need to understand, that with these big projects, environmental impact assessment studies must be made. But it must be made in such a way that the country benefits, that the country is safeguarded. Not just a wishy-washy report sent to the minister and say, look, we did our study and everything is kosher, everything is great. And yeah, when those in power don't know how to read such a report, anything is good, even if it means they're going to fill your pond. And that's the problem, because what they do is they start to manipulate these reports and tell you only need so much hectares of catch basin, while in reality, Mother Nature set it itself from day one. And we want to press the reset button and do it different. It's going to be detrimental for us. But it is clear that a lot of these plans are in contradiction to existing legislation. So the question is, how did they pass? Why did they pass? And then, you come to conclusions that normally you wouldn't want to come to. But these plans are going to have a negative effect on our environment, on our water runoffs, etc., etc. The social impact is going to be significant on the areas where this is going to be built. There are no mitigation measures taken because you can't see them. Because normally, you'd fix up the whole infrastructure before you even build. You'd make sure that the whole ecosystem is protected and safeguarded before you even start to build. Right now, you can see them in Bel Air. They're just pushing that sand. They're throwing it there and pushing it. Not one mitigation measure was taken to protect, for example, the mangroves. Not one. To ensure that water that comes off the hill can run off. Not one. Because they're just piling up the sand. These are the things that make you say, what's really happening? And this is where I'm saying we have to be very, very careful what we are doing, because I don't believe that the existing legislation is being applied accordingly. And, I don't know truly if the decisions that were taken were in the best interest of country Samaritan. And This is not a new thing. They say it didn't happen in the last 2 years alone. I ain't going to do as if it's only the last 2 years. It has happened in the last 20 years. And you have to ask yourself the question then, in whose interest was it? But, you know, we have Big Brother looking over everybody's shoulder all the time. And I know factually that Big Brother went in to throw me again and pick up a barrage of building permits this time. A lot. Most of them over the hill by the big boys. And those are going to be reviewed now for wrongdoings. So get ready, get your tea, get your coffee, because that's how going to start just now. NVGB. When I read a newspaper article about GB meeting many questions, many questions came to mind right away. And some of the answers were more comical than truly useful. The Prime Minister sat there and said things, and I just shook my head and said, that can't be true. That at this stage of the game, we talking this. I liked how she said, well, these answers were actually made in December. So what the hell are you reading them for in March? Have them updated. Or that's too much to ask. You come there and you state that these are answers from December. We are talking about billing systems, outstandings. And that's the answer you have for the public of St. Martin? I understand you lost the elections, you know. I understand you're leaving end of the month. But Jesus, have a little respect for the people of this country. Because what you did was just slap the people in their faces. I mean, you know, I listened to the statement of, let's get portable electricity. That's electricity generators. That's basically what it is. You hook on the water supply, fuel supply. You put on the cables to take out the electricity via the transformer houses, and you're good to go. Not difficult. It's something that they use all over the world when there are emergencies, earthquakes, for example, and they need power, or power plant had an explosion, they lose part of the power plant, they will disconnect that piece and put in power. It's like how boats work. You know, boats that float out there, big cruise ships, that's portable power, because it's not on land. But it's not cheap. It's definitely not cheap. And what got to me was why we're not talking about renewable energy. Back in May 2023, the Prime Minister gloated when she signed the agreement with Minister Rob Jetten of Climate Change and Energy of the Netherlands that St. Martin, Curaçao, and Aruba would be part of a 200 million euro project where the countries can apply. It's a grant, free of charge, to do renewable energy and to ensure economic sustainability. We are nearly 1 year further, and St. Martin hasn't done a damn thing. Prime Minister, don't come and tell me about all the plans, because that's BS. You have access to the NRPB that has manpower. We have Sol that made a presentation to you all for a solar panel park in the Fresh Pond. We have companies here. NRPB is busy to take solar panels, put them on roofs of schools, government buildings, airport, all over the place, like other countries do, and create energy and put it on the grid from GB. It means that during the day, GB uses about 50 megawatt. So it means if you put 20, 30 megawatt on roofs, you don't have to burn that fuel. GB's engines are turned up. I'm not talking about putting battery packs right now, which is expensive. I'm talking about just using the electricity in the grid straight off. And that would mean that there are huge savings on fuel. Because 40 cents per kilowatt hour on fuel clause, and that's not addressed when you discuss GB, it's a damn shame. Because it shows your incompetency, like I've always told you you are. I'm sorry to have to do this. But I was so irked and irritated when I heard you speak. I could not believe that that's the best you could bring about GB. Renewable energy is everything. That's what the world is all about. We have the smart grid. But that too was just a joke. Because the results are not there. GB is not a player. They're supposed to be the partner. They're supposed to be pulling this. They're our utility company. And irregardless, if we don't like what all is happening at GB, with the bills and the blackouts and all that, if we keep shooting them down, they will never be able to get up. So GB should be a front runner with renewable energy, being in charge of the development of the smart grid for the country. But they're not. That's our mistake. That's where we constantly make mistakes. We have enough roofs in St. Martin to put solar panels. And you know what I can tell you? Oh, but the hurricane will come and go blow them away. So how come Sabin Station don't blow away? How come they don't blow away? Because they went through Irma. Yes, Irma. They didn't blow away. Cuvalier was there when Irma and St. Eustatius. And they told me they didn't lose nothing. They were back up. So you see, people, again, while they're small scale, because they're talking about 4 megawatt and 2 megawatt and all those things, we're talking about 50. We have enough roofs to put up systems and ensure it goes back to the grid. So that way, during the height of the usage, we are getting free energy. Now, mind you, put $25 million of solar panel on roofs. And you're going to say, oh my God, that's so much of money. And you have a savings of 40% on your fuel. That would mean that you would save, on average, $1 million a month. $1 million a month. $12 million a year. And within 2 years, you got back your investment. So in the third year, you have a profit of $12 million. Solar panels go for 7 to 10 years. Please, do the math. Y'all can't be that stupid. But you all don't listen to those that know. It's all about a photo op. It's all about a sweet talk. But the country taking the beating of its life. That's our problem. We don't deal with the real issues. We deal with the makeup issues around this place. Again, when you see that our fuel clause is now 40%, 40 cents per kilowatt hour, do you know what this does to the water prices for business? You all have a clue at all as government? Well, I'll tell you something. Right now, they pay about 17 to 18 guilders fuel clause per metric ton of water. So if a business uses 10 tons, they just paid 180 guilders fuel clause. And then another 12 guilders for the water. So they're paying 300 guilders for 10 tons of water. Which business do you think can survive this way? They have to start flushing the toilets with salt water. Because they can't afford it. These are things that we have to get real about. These are things we got to start talking about. Because we can talk all we want, but if it doesn't make sense, then how do we go forward? Like I said, I believe there are a lot of things that are ongoing that maybe we should look at them different. Telem, for example, is having a huge financial issue. Maybe it's time to bring all the various infrastructures together, put them in a company, and let that company do investments moving forward. This is something that was proposed in 2014, if I'm not mistaken myself. I sat at those meetings. I think, if I'm not mistaken myself, that time Glenn was with Flo, because he was there too. Well, Chippy UTS that time. So again, there are a lot of things that we can do, but because we allow all kind of politics to take, because government change, we change whatever they were doing, we find ourselves in these positions. What's happening with the new government? Because that's something that I don't understand yet. Is this government being hijacked? Because you hear all kind of things. We got a few disgruntled politicians, and they have naturally their backing. And the question is, how high up the ladder does that go? Sometimes, when things are done right and the laws of the country are followed correctly, we should have had a government already. Screening, as we affectionately know it, has been done illegal for a few years now. In 2014, we had no screening laws. And Theo Heiliger was to become Prime Minister, and one big boolabahoo, they put up a whole screening thing, and they told us, make sure that you all put your own screening law in place by the next election. So when the next elections came in 2016, that kingdom decree that was made, because it was a kingdom decree, that was put aside, and St. Martin came with its own screening law, which was the integrity of the ministers. Curacao, on the other hand, they created a whole screening law. I mean, a serious, in-depth screening law. Not St. Martin. St. Martin didn't have that. Doesn't have it still. St. Martin's screening law is looking at the integrity of the minister, family things, taxes, those type of things. Today, we are hearing, because you can't verify it, that VDSM does a whole deep dive in the person, and the public prosecutor's office gives an opinion or an advice on the person if there are any pending investigations or investigations to come or ongoing investigations, etc., etc. And that information is then used in deciding if you're going to go along with a candidate, yes or no. And if the formateur says yes, and the governor says no, then the governor sends it to the Raad van State in Holland for annulment. This nonsense about if the governor says, I ain't signing it, that you go and look for another candidate, absolute nonsense. Send it to Holland. He doesn't ultimately decide. He follows instructions. Has always, will always. So in that sense, I wonder what's going on now. Because I know questions were asked, questions were answered, then they sent back the questions and said, but you didn't answer this and you didn't answer that. And I was privy to hear some of the questions that were asked, and I'm not going to delve into the questions itself directly of the candidates that I spoke to. But clearly, those that are reading these questions, or the answers to the questions, clearly have no clue of the people. Clearly don't know our laws. Because there's no way in hell you can ask about taxes of 25 years ago. That is utter nonsense, because the law doesn't allow it. If there was any kind of tax fraud or something like that created, you can go back 10 years. But it stops. Normally it's 5 years. But you're asking about 20, 25 years ago. That tells me that something's off. That's what it tells me. And I wonder, why is this happening? The law is clear. What are you trying to fabricate? Why the stagnation? Because the VDSM cannot hand in no reports. And if they come in, they should challenge them right away in the court of law. Because it's not about what the report said. It's about the validity of the report, the legality of the report, the process that must be followed and is not being followed. That's what this is about now. Samantha needs to learn that sometimes you gotta hit back, and hit back hard. Because as long as you allow them to ride you as a donkey, you will remain the donkey. And you will never become the rider. Think about it. Think about it carefully. But the way I'm understanding it, we will have a government by Easter. And hopefully, all will be finished. 7 new ministers will be in place. The old ones will go home crying. Most probably a leader will resign. She was defeated twice. And we'll get a new leader. And we will move on with young blood, as they said. We'll see. All of those things are not relevant to a new government. What is relevant to the new government is that this screening show is finalized. Let me start congratulating, because that's a new little something I want to put in. I want to congratulate Limitless Infrastructure for their sponsorship to get the Simpson Bay basketball court repaired and fully operational. Truly appreciated. I think that was a great gesture by the company. I know they come from that neighborhood, so I understand, but nevertheless, it's a great gesture. Also, I want to give a very special congratulations to farmer Denisio Wyatt, who has embarked on an 8-week training program for 4 groups. I am in one of those groups. That's why I am throwing out the congrats. I have learned more of agriculture in 4 weeks than I learned in a lifetime. While me and Denisio have exchanged a lot of opinions, sometimes good, sometimes not good, I have utmost respect for the determination the young man has when it comes to agriculture. I was one of them that during my campaign spoke a lot about agriculture and sustainability of agriculture. And I decided, let me learn more about what I want to see happen. With my daughter, we are busy with towers to do more for ourselves and our neighborhood. And Denisio, keep doing what you're doing, brother. You're on the right path. Rome wasn't built in a day. There are many roads that also lead to Rome, but at least we know where we want to go. And that, with the 4 groups we have, and maybe the 15 to 20 people that are in these groups, I think at the end of the day, we will have 20 people that are much more educated when it comes to agriculture, the benefits of soils, the benefits of fertilizers, pesticides, you name it, seedlings, grafting, listen, slowly but surely we're learning it. And that's so important. So once again, Denisio, kudos, man. Thank you very, very much. You're doing a great, great job. But when there are congratulations, there are also shames. And I don't know. I don't know really how to put this. I saw a ceremony, because that's what they call it, a signing ceremony, where you bring up officers, you tell them you're signing their LB, you give them nothing. They stand there, they don't know what's going on really, because I look at it and I said to myself, really, man? Is this what it's really all about? Taking a picture? I think they have taken about 20 pictures now already with this whole function book and the LBs. This is, please pay the damn people, because that picture you haven't taken yet. And that's the one you won't take, most probably. See, that's my problem. And then you turn around and you say, and the incoming minister, he better do what you gotta do and follow what I'm doing here. Are you serious? He's not into the pageantry. The pictures will come when they need to come. What we need to do is take care of our officers. They're leaving us every day. They're going to greener pastures. We lost a hell of an officer that gone to the airport. And I'm happy for him, because he was going no place anymore. He got desperate. He got frustrated. And that's unfortunate. But that's the situation most of these people find themselves into right now. Carnival. A truly sorry to see what's really happening. But it's nearly as if Carnival's for sale to the highest bidder. And while I agree everybody should make money, there are ways to make money without undermining organizations that are doing this voluntary for the past 50 years. Older than you are, Minister. Let me close with this. A senior called me today for the second time. She called me last week, she called me this week. She says, Mr. Bonkamper, what's happening with garbage collection in Saunders? Particularly on the Flamboyant Road. 12 days, they have not had service. And I said, wow, that's a lot. So I called. Couldn't get no answers, but eventually I got someone, and they said, I don't think it's 12 days, I think it's 10 days. But the contract says 3 times a week. I don't want to finger point. Just go pick up the damn garbage. That's what they pay you for. Please share my podcast and also like and subscribe to my YouTube page. I want you all to have a great week ahead. Next week, we're going to be talking about billions in suspicious transactions that flow through Dutch flex offices yearly. And a few other nice little topics that I have on my list already, but because of time and so, like absolute power corrupts absolutely. We're going to be talking about those things next week once again. So for now, from me to you, take care, enjoy the week. Bunks is out.